Welcome to Passionate Reply, and welcome to Great Albums. Today I'll be tackling an album that's more recent than anything I've done on Great Albums before, but it's still old enough to start being considered a classic. The Knife's Silent Shout, released in 2006, and hence seeing its 15th birthday in 2021. Silent Shout is a bit special to me insofar as it was an album I loved as a teenager back when it was still pretty new, and it was probably the first album I really fell in love with that wasn't significantly older than I was. I was quite surprised when I eventually learned just how beloved Silent Shout is among music aficionados. This album has been lauded in critical circles, recommended as a patrician essential, and even considered one of the greatest electronic albums of all time. So what's the fuss about? Before Silent Shout, the Knife were significantly closer to a conventional electronic pop duo. Their biggest claim to fame was the track Heartbeats, which scored some exposure after a cover of it was featured in a TV ad.
One night to be confused, one night to speed of truth. We had a promise made, for handsome men away, both under influence. We had divine sense to know what to say. Mind is a razor blade.
I think that Heartbeats contains the seeds of what's great about Silent Shout, with its grinding synth backing and vocalist Karen Dreyer's affecting wail, but its indie pop brightness is something distinctively absent from their follow-up. Contrary to what might have been expected from an up-and-coming pop act, the sibling duo hunkered down in the studio and set about making something stranger and more exotic. On the technical front, they stripped the production down to its bare essentials, using just digital rhythms and 2 synthesizers to achieve everything we hear on the album. Stylistically, they took their sound into moody, atmospheric territory, imbuing it with this eerie, claustrophobic ambiance. It's the musical equivalent of Frankenstein emerging from Mary Shelley's mind while the dreary year without a summer had poisoned the world around her. The title track here is also the opener and introduces us to the frightful world of Silent Shout without mercy. This track is dominated by a powerful contrast of sound. Low, thrumming bass and these quick but delicate and meandering synth arpeggios carrying a distinctively Scandinavian flair. This bewitching synthesis of musical ideas makes sense in light of the diverse influences of the 2 siblings who made up the Knife. Instrumentalist Olaf Dreyer was strongly influenced by dance styles like house, trance, and progressive techno, as well as ambient electronic music, whereas vocalist Karen Dreyer was interested in guitar-based popular music as well as the distinctive folk traditions of their native Sweden. Not unlike the Pet Shop Boys, they've got a wide gap between their influences, but that only serves to intensify the uniqueness of their work, which strikes listeners in a way the constituent musical parts of its heritage never could. Perhaps the most significant sonic feature of the album, though, is the extreme electronic distortions of Karen Dreyer's voice.
So extra femininity, the one with skirts and high heels, a shiny sink and homemade me, the one and only way. If you aim to stay, sons and daughters you will breathe, as long as you breastfeed. You've been a man, it's a bliss. One hit, one kiss. How, 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 how.
If raw and everymanish vocals make music feel more in line with our everyday reality, the shocking and monstrous ones on Silent Shout render it a truly otherworldly work of art. While many people are quick to decry the fakeness of electronically mediated vocals, despite the fact that all art is of course artificial, I think Silent Shout proves more boldly than anything else just how uniquely powerful this musical tool can be in the right hands. Once you get past the sheer sonic force of the vocals and their peculiar skin-crawling timbres, you'll find that most of the lyrical subject matter is actually painfully quotidian. One hit, for instance, is told from the perspective of an all-too-normal monster, a domestic abuser extracting and enforcing femininity and domestic servitude through the force of violence, dealing in one hit, one kiss. Sex, gender, and exploitation based upon them are among the album's most central themes, and expressed harrowingly on tracks like Na Na Na. Perhaps more so than any other track on the album, Na 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 is rendered borderline incomprehensible by vocal treatment, a trait magnified by its obviously meaningless title and chorus. But Na 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 does have real lyrics, which tell the story of a life mediated by reproductive anatomy, defined by the rhythm of menstruation coming from within and the constant fear of sexual violence from without. It's a tale of hidden anxiety and experiences that go unseen and unspoken despite how common they are, making the haze of inscrutability laid over them all the more poignant. It's clear that these issues are of high importance to Karen Dreyer, who has publicly described themselves as genderqueer, despite both members of the band being remarkably sparing with all personal details. In another of the most striking vocal performances on the album, We Share Our Mother's Health, Dreyer even gets to sing a duet with themselves and embody two distinct characters at once. We Share Our Mother's Health can be read in the light of gender and sex dynamics as well, particularly if you're willing to read its twin narrators as representations of masculinity and femininity. Personally, though, I think that's a bit too easy, and really a bit too cis-normative. I think the album is more interesting if we embrace the fundamental uncertainty of identity and the transgressive queerness of it all. That said, I prefer to think of We Share Our Mother's Health as a piece about capitalism, the endless toiling and scrounging for more material comfort and security, and the emptiness left behind when that proves to be no pathway towards true happiness. Besides, it's not like sexism and the class struggle don't feed off of each other in the end. This track's sense of cacophony, with voices nearly battling to drown each other out, shows its more strident, aggressive, and downright angry side, which it delivers as powerfully as it does those moody atmospheres. Silent Shout is the perfect title for this album, given its emphasis on voicing internal and private laments that go unheard, and voicing them with this terrifying sense of primal scream catharsis. While I initially wasn't overly fond of the album art, it's grown on me a bit now that I've seen it blown up to a larger size. This central disc shape is certainly evocative of a record or a CD, and its industrial-looking lattice structure with a mottled, grimy-looking texture helps conjure the impression of machine-age ennui. I think a lot of the enduring appeal of Silent Shout is its sense of mystery. A lot of that mystery is deliberately crafted iconoclasm and part of the art. While promoting the album, the Knife were photographed wearing sinister, elaborate, beaked plague doctor masks, and their live performances from this period shrouded the band in darkness to obfuscate their appearances. They've refused to accept awards for their music or attend awards ceremonies, including one memorable incident in which they sent costumed representatives of feminist organization Guerrilla Girls in their stead. After Silent Shout, the duo created an opera based on Charles Darwin's The Origin of Species in 2009 and released one more studio album in 2013, Shaking the Habitual. Shaking the Habitual received mixed reviews, and so far has proven to be the siblings' final work together, though they remain active as musicians independently, with Corinne Dreyer recording under the moniker Fever Ray. Part of the great myth of Silent Shout is the fact that nothing else in their discography really quite approaches its specific sound and sharp precision of conceptual focus. It's like the album is tailor-made to stand perfectly alone, outside of context, perhaps even outside of genre. For many of us, this great legend of lightning-in-a-bottle genius is infinitely alluring, but I've never really bought into it too thoroughly myself. I obviously adore Silent Shout, and I think it's a great album. But unlike many people who have showered it with praise, often claiming that they don't enjoy electronic music overall, I've always been interested in a lot of heavy, angry, creepy, synthesizer-based music, and so I never thought too much of listening to this and liking it. People praise Silent Shout for being unlike anything else, but I think it sounds like a lot of post-industrial darkwave like Attrition or Chris and Cozy, and its themes of feminist rage feel like a strong parallel to that of more recent stars of noise music, such as Pharmakon and Lingua Ignota. But that's not to devalue what Silent Shout does achieve. I think it is a unique album, in the way that a bat is a unique animal. Much as bats are not the only creatures who fly, but stand out for having developed that ability despite their mammalian heritage, Silent Shout doesn't actually take direct inspiration from the earlier music it sounds the most like. It ended up there through the aforementioned eldritch alchemy, combining trance and folk and Kate Bush to get something new. That's still something worth celebrating. Silent Shout needn't be a perfect enigma to be a stirring masterpiece of an album. My overall top track on Silent Shout, which I bet will be a popular choice, is Forest Families. It's equal parts bleak and strangely anthemic, defined by both the unease of adapting to a plainer and harsher existence outside the bounds of society, as well as the release that music itself provides to so many of us as we seek comfort. Since music is so important to me, I'm a real sucker for music about the importance of music, and it feels particularly well placed on an album that's a cathartic listen in so many ways. That about wraps this one up. Thank you for watching.
Too far away from the city, some kids left on their own. They said we had a communist in the family. I had to wear a mask. Too far away from the city, we had to make us a room. Fathers were football players, Volvo works, policemen. know.